Okay, we are working today in possessive pronouns in Persian, and as we see then in a couple of further sentences here that I brought as examples, we have two types of possessive pronouns, the so-called plain ones or the separated possessive pronouns, and the joined ones or the enclitic forms. They are basically very synonymous, but they don't have necessarily the same application. One thing that you have to know, of course, that these possessive pronouns in their plain form are absolutely identical with the personal pronouns we do know in Persian. If you look at the left side from 1 to 6, these pronouns, man, to, او, ما, شما, and آنها, they're exactly the same pronouns you're using to create phrases. For example, من فرشید هستم، تو سارا هستی، او مایکل است, etc. They're absolutely the same pronouns. It means we do not have another form of the possessive pronouns in plain form, except those we use also at the same time as personal pronouns. It is not like that you have in English the word I, and then you have mine or my. It is the same pronoun we are using for possessives, at least in its plain form. Now, if we consider these 6 pronouns that we have here, man, to, او, ما, شما, آنها, and then just having a glance on the right side of the file under the topic example, you see that you could really use these pronouns after a noun and you create a possessive. So, کتاب من, کتاب تو, کتاب او, which means my book, your book, his or her book, as Persian does not recognize or distinguish between male and female. And then in plural, ketab ma, ketab shoma, and finally ketab anha. So, but one thing that I have to emphasize here, as you see here, we have here a connection between the word ketab and the pronoun man. It means in order to create a possessive pronoun from plain, normal, personal pronouns, we have to create a liaison or a connection between the owner and the owned one. With other words, between the possessed and the possessor. So that's why we need this a, ketab man. Without this a, which we call it in Persian اضافه construction or genitive construction, the whole idea is lost. You have always to keep in mind that in constructing of possessive pronouns between the pronoun and the possessive pronoun, between the pronoun and the noun, there is always a genitive construction expressed by a short vowel a. So you cannot simply say ketab man. That would mean book, I. So you have to say ketab man. And that repeats everywhere. Ketab to, ketab u, ketab ma, ketab shoma, ketab anha, which literally means my book, your book, his / her book, our book, your book, and their book. So this is the plain form of the possessive pronouns. So, but there is also an alternative that I have it after the separator line here. And in this case, we do drop the a construction as a genitive form or the izafi construction, and we just add those endings. And these are the endings I would like to work on. We have am, as you see now, transcribed here, and here in Arabic alphabet, at, and finally ash in the third person singular. So it means we have a kind of equivalent forms for using the possessive pronouns in enclitic form or the joint form. So instead of say ketabam, I can simply go ahead say ketabam. Instead of ketabatu, I can say ketabat. And instead of ketabu, I can say ketabash. In this case, this a form between ketab and the pronouns are dropped, and you do not write the pronouns separately. You would keep them together. Ketabam, ketabat, ketabash. And it absolutely has the same meaning as if you would not use in enclitic form, but in plain form. So it means ketabaman and ketabam both mean my book, etc. And now let's go to the plural form. You see here, instead of ma, we have aman. So it means instead of to say ketabam, I simply go ahead and say ketabaman. The a reappears here in plural. In singular, we didn't have it. You see that? Ketabam, ketabat, ketabash, no genitive construction, but here the a comes back. Ketabaman, our book. Ketabetan with etan, your book. And finally, ketabeshan instead of ketabanha, which means their book. So this is the way we are creating the possessive pronouns. Okay, now there is just one exception. As I told, they have exactly the synonymous meaning, but in the syntax of the phrase, there's a subtle difference between using the possessive pronouns in enclitic form or in a plain form. You are free to use either forms with one exception. If the subject and the object in the phrase are identical, it is better to use and is correct to use the form enclitic and not the plain form. And we work on that in a couple of minutes. But for now, I would like to see in these forms of this couple of phrases that I used everywhere, the possessive forms separated here. As you see that here. And sorry, and then Toma and Anha. So I have 6 phrases, and in all these phrases, I keep using these possessive pronouns in plain form. What I would like you to do is converting them to the enclitic forms. And just as a reminder, it is am, at, ash in singular, aman, etan, eshan in singular. So it means if you have a phrase like machine man, so you have to change it to the word machina, my car, my car. So knowing that theory, let's go if you can change them. So I just minimize the page so that you would have access, visual access to those possessives in enclitic form. And we go ahead and just modify the phrases. We do not modify the meaning. We just modify the phrases, avoiding using possessive pronouns in plain form, but in enclitic form. Go ahead, Natalie. You're muted, sorry.
Sorry. So looking at the first sentence, do you want me to read it as it is first and then replace the word?
Yes, would be also good for the students to get a little bit adapted to the sound system and see what the morphological and phonological difference does it make when you use that in plain form.
So, ein ketabam است.
Exactly. In ketabam است. Now, if I want to say this phrase in enclitic form, how would I change it?
You would substitute the ketabam for ketabam.
Perfect. And I would say that in ketabam است. Exactly. Is that what I would like you to do through all, sorry, it's a bit overlapped, through all the phrases that we have here. So in ketabam است becomes in ketabam است. What about the next phrase? The word خودکار is a neologism in Persian. That means pen, a self-writer word by word. Because khod means self, kar means working. It means works by itself, so you don't need to use an ink and feather. So it's a new word for pen. So, and that means, yeah, khudkar means pen. Go ahead. You're silent. You're muted. Go ahead.
خودکار تو کجاست.
Perfect. خودکار تو کجاست? So where is your pen? And now try to use the joint form or joint form. Yeah.
خودکار تو. Oh no, خودکارت
خود
کجاست.
Exactly. خودکارت کجاست? Well, does it make any difference in meaning? The answer is no. خودکارت کجاست or خودکار تو کجاست? They're absolute synonymous words, but we will see in rather more complicated, more labyrinth phrases that sometimes is better to use the enclitic forms, the joint forms, than the plain forms. So next phrase.
خانه. Sorry.
It's correct. خانه.
خانه و برگ است. بزرگ است.
Exactly. خانه او بزرگ است. So his or her house or home is big. Now, something happens here because here it's a phenomenon that we haven't dealt yet with. So the word khane ends with a vowel. And I explained here that in order to create a connection between the possessed one and the possessor, respectively between the owned one and the owner, we have to add an a as a short vowel at the end of the first word, I mean at the end of the last letter of the first word. But what about if the word does not terminate with a consonant, but with a vowel, as it is the case of the word khane? In this case, we extend the vowel from a to ye. It means we are using a ye with a sign under. So instead of to say khane-e, which is quite inconvenient to pronounce, we have glottal stops, you soften it. And facilitation happens through adding a ye at the end of the word khane. So instead of to say khane, as you would say ketabe, because ketab is a consonant, be at the end, you would say khane. So now when you're using the enclitic form, you do not need this ye anymore, because this ye is just valid if you have this izafe construction, this a construction. So you don't have it here in the enclitic form. So it means if you want to say his or her house, you do not need a ye anymore. But what you need is in fact adding a glottal stop aleph and then adding the possessive pronoun at the end. So the possessive pronoun you need here, of course, is this one. That's what we do need here. But you cannot really connect it directly with the khane. You have to come up with an idea to add an aleph here. And then you create it. So go ahead and tell me how you would say that.
So خانه-اش.
Perfect. Exactly. Perfect. خانه اش
بزرگ است.
Perfect. خانه اش بزرگ است. This is in fact the only exception. And the exception is because the words, as explained you before, it's not simply end with a consonant. That is the case. Sorry, as it is was the case for the previous two sentences, or the examples above the word ketabam. خانه اش بزرگ است. Perfect. So now here the three next phrases are plural. The first one is in خودرو ماست. In خودرو ماست. This is our car. And now you want to use that in enclitic form. And interesting enough, in enclitic forms, the is, they come back. So, how would you say that?
So in خودرو امان must.
In خودرو امان است. Exactly. In خودرو خودرو امان است. Well, you could also extend it, you can say it خودروی امان است, using a ye, but in fact, you don't need it. In خودروی امان است. This is our car. And again, you see this word خودرو, as you had it also in the phrase خودکار, which literally meant a self-writer, something that writes by itself. So in fact, they are the neologism, because خودکار means a self-moving object, and the خود means self, and ro means go, so it goes by itself. But that's a neologism in Persian, which is not of our concern for now. It's just important that you know that we have a couple of neologism in Persian, not using any more French or Arabic or English loan words. And of course, you could also use the word machine instead of خودرو. So, but خودرو is mean one quite frequently used in Persian. So look at the second last phrase. So the word is madarik. It's a plural of the word madrak, and madrak means document. So madarik is in fact documents, papers. Okay.
So مدارک
Mhm.
شما در این کیف هست.
Exactly. So مدارک شما در این کیف هست. So documents of you, your documents, در در means in means this, kif is the back, past. So your documents are in this bag. Now you want to use the inclusive form.
So مدارک اتان
مدارکتان
در این کیف هست.
کیف هست. Perfect. مدارکتان در این کیف هست. Just put a little bit more near here. Just a little bit that overlap. So مدارکتان در این کیف هست. Okay. The last phrase. So the word chador, well, in Persian has two meanings. The first basic meaning is tent, but it has also second meaning. That's the chador, there's the cover, is that's from the head to the feet that Iranian women, well, traditional women are wearing. It's like hijab, but in Persian version of that. So, and it's a loan word. You have also in English, chador. So, but I just meant here the word tent, not the chador, in meaning of the head cover. Okay. So, and the word zard is yellow. Okay.
چادر آنها زرد است.
Perfect. چادر آنها زرد است. And now you want to use the inclusive form, and that will be done this one.
So چادر ایشان زرد است.
چادرشان چادرشان زرد است. Right. And that will then be inclusive form. Is in fact, it's all what you have to know. Oh, sorry, since overlapped. چادرشان زرد است. That means you have man, to, او, ما, شما, آنها becomes am, at, ash, eman, etan, eshan. Now let's look at this exercise. Let's say it's more sophisticated because you have to translate those phrases into Persian. For vocabulary, I'm there to help you, but think about this possessives first. My, your, his, which is the same like her, our, your, and their. The first three phrases are singular, and the third from the 4 to 6 are plural. So what we are going to do is we use this binary phrase. We say once with the plain form and one with the inclusive form. So is there any vocab in the first phrase that you wouldn't know?
No. I
Okay.
think I know the first phrase.
Perfect.
So in ketabam asked would be like, this is my book.
Perfect. In ketabam asked.
And in ketabam asked would be the
Perfect. In ketabam asked. Perfect. In ketabam asked versus in ketabam asked. Let's look at a second phrase here.
So when asking a question, you wouldn't have to like reverse
No,
anything.
no, not at all. You could use "aya" at the beginning, as we discussed it at the beginning. Do you remember? And we were
Yes.
working on the question words, but it's not. It's really obsolete. You don't need it. Of course, you need it for the written form because you have to designate it. That's a question phrase. But I mean, meanwhile, it's not necessary. We can add "aya" if you want at the beginning. Just like that. Or not.
So you could say aya in
Mhm.
iPhone asked.
Exactly. آیا این آیفونه exactly. آیا این آیفونه تو است
Or aya in iPhone asked.
perfect. آیا این آیفونت oops. آیا این آیفونت است perfect. That's it. آیا این آیفون تو است آیا این آیفونت است perfect. Yeah. Third phrase. Okay.
So for this one, here is inja, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So in terms of when you connect, like, it would be kitabe or
Perfect.
no,
Exactly. كتاب او.
inja kitabe asked.
Well, no, you would start
No.
with inja is better. Because,
Okay.
you know what I mean? It's inja is a kind of a demonstrative pronoun for nearness, and in Persian we put inja at the head of the phrase. So
At the end.
you could also say, well, it doesn't matter. You could say inja, or let's go ahead. Let's go ahead with the way that you chose. Ketabe.
Whichever ways.
No, both forms are okay. Both forms are okay. It's depending on the emphasis has something to do with the intention of the speaker and not with the falsehood or correctness of the phrase. Because I could mean the book is here and not there, or the book is here and not the notebook and not the computer. So in this case, we just write it neutrally and start with the ketabu. Go ahead. Ketabu.
Kitabe inja asked.
Perfect. In ja asked. Here, as explained here, you can contract in ja with as.
Injust.
Exactly, in just. And there is a reason for that because we have clash of two vowels that are absolutely identical. In just. Ketabu in just. And now what about the other option?
Kitabash injust.
Perfect. Ketabash in just. Perfect. So let's look at number 5.
So in terms of these,
So it is, so what is the word for this in singular? Because we have this and that is in and on, right? Well, in order to make it plural, you add just an ha at the end. So those would be on ha, and these would be in ha.
Okay.
So because we have these two pronouns, in and on, where in is the demonstrative pronoun when you point on an object or a person with your index finger, in, and if something is visited for further distance, you would say on, which at the same time it means he or she or that. So would be in her.
In her. Just
Yeah, and but in plural.
aman or just ma.
Well, it's friends, so you have to put it in plural.
Oh, that's right. That you do that by adding the haye ha.
Perfect. Yes, correct. In ha dust haye.
Okay, this changes what I was thinking then. Dust haye aman.
Well, well, you want to use what form you want to use? You want to use the inflected form or the plain form? Let's go with the plain form first. Then we did use hayema.
Okay.
Right, and then the verb.
Inha.
No, the verb.
Oh, hakim. Right.
And third person singular, third person plural, the has stand, right? Has.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Stand. اینها دوستای ما هستند. Just to let you know, if your object is a humankind or animate being, you have also the option to use on. Say دوستان. And of course with the a.
Okay.
دوستان. There are alif and nun instead of ha. So اینها دوستهای ما or اینها دوستان ما هستند. Now, what would be then the infinitive form?
Would it be دوستهای امان?
دوستهایمان. Exactly.
دوستهای امان. Okay.
اینها دوستهایمان. Perfect. هستند. Exactly. So just exactly. اینها دوستهایمان هستند. Just put a little bit near each other. اینها دوستهای ما or دوستهایمان هستند. Perfect. A little bit smaller so that we match here. Okay. اینها دوستهای ما یا دوستهای ما or دوستهایمان هستند. Perfect. And the last phrase here, naturally. Number 6. So, their house is old. The word for old is, you could use khane. That's this word that I share for you. Khane. Or if you want, you could use the word qadimi. They both have the same meaning. With the subtle difference that, in fact, qadimi means old in the meaning of ancient and archaic, And khane means old as an opposite to word new. So ripped off, ruined, or damaged, broken. That's khane. Now, it really doesn't matter which of these two words, khane or qadimi, you would like to use. So,
Okay. One moment. So we would be using the like anha form.
yes.
Okay.
But you have to, of course, use the house and then anha.
Okay. One moment. I feel like if I like write, I can understand like the order of the words better.
They say the house of them is old, or the house of them old is.
So khane anha.
Right? خانه exactly. خانه آنها. It's over there here. خانه آنها.
Kone asked.
Perfect. خانه آنها. کهنه. Oops. کهنه است. That is one option. What about if you would like to go and using the inflected form?
It would be khane ishan.
Perfect. خانهشان.
Kone.
خانهشان. And the same, the rest is the same. خانهشان
Kone
کهنه
asked.
کهنه است. Perfect. خانهشان کهنه است. Perfect. So to just enforce this form and internalize it for the students, I created a second exercise here in which you have the option to use either possessives that you want. Well, one of the 6 possessive pronouns in inclusive form or in plain form. So these are the possessives. Ours, those are just ours, yours, their, my, mine, and our. So let's start with the first one.
So haneman.
خانمان, exactly, in خانمان است. This is the inclusive, and another one will be the خانه. That's it. And if you would use خانمان, so in fact, you could really, in this case, if you would use this one, so you, in fact, drop the ear here. That's it. In خانمان است. In خانه ما است. And orthographically is not bad because the word ends with a consonant, with a word, sorry, that you would say aman, like aleph, mim, aleph, khane aman. You would have this, then this a here, khane aman. So okay.
So Aya in ketab کتاب تو است.
Perfect. آیا کتاب تو است or
کتابت است.
کتابت. Perfect. Oops, sorry. Kitabat. Perfect. Next one.
Um,
Okay.
okay, so this is
You want to say their children, right? And the one of these three, right? Aman, Etan, Eshan. Okay.
so and then so this first word it would be children. That's
Bacheha.
بچه‌ها.
Mhm.
So بچه‌ها ایشان
Exactly. Bacheha Eshan. So would be become like that.
بازی
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Bacheha
می‌کنی.
Eshan. Exactly. And if I want to use a separate, I would say Bacheha Anha.
آنها.
That's it. So of course, you need still this ye here. Bacheha Anha. Perfect. Okay. So next phrase, my friend sees well. And okay, and that's the verb me be not. Me be not with a vowel above the letter noon. Me be not.
So دوستمان or دوستم خوب می‌بینند.
Perfect. دوستم or دوستم خوب میبیند. دوست من or دوستم خوب میبیند. They tried to keep the let's say the number of the vocabs I'm using for this homework quite limited, so that the focus will be not just being confused, looking for the meaning of the words, but really concentrating on the main topic, which is the possessive pronoun. Oh, that's why I'm using again and again the same words. Keith, we had it up there, that is bag. Samuel would say this bag is mine.
این کیف من است.
Would be them.
or این کیفم است.
Perfect. Either keep in manner, or I would say keep them. Perfect. Next one. It's just this French word in Persian gets an A after K. So that would be short A, class, not class, but class.
So کلاس امان or کلاس
Not class man, because that's our.
oh, did we not want our?
Okay, well, not class man. Oh, you want to say man or man? Because
Okay, yes, کلاس امان would
exactly.
be
Yes, it has
that.
to be long, otherwise it would sound like a class man. So exactly, class man.
or
Uh-huh.
the ma.
Exactly, or saying then class ma. Exactly. کلاس امان versus کلاس ما بزرگ است. Our classroom is big. Okay. Okay. Again, the same exercise to make sure that nothing is missing here. So, well, on ketab است. So that book is his. Again, the same approach, using a possessive one in a plain form or in an implicit form.
So kitabat, or maybe no.
Well, it's not your, it is in fact his.
Would be abash.
Yes, exactly. Kitabash. Kitabash. Sorry.
Kitabeo. Kitabu.
Perfect. Kitabash versus kitabu. So in fact, kitabe. We also say oost, right? Because there are long vowel here, so to say uast. In fact, in pronunciation, you're welcome to drop the aleph from ast, and you just say kitabe oost. On kitabe oost. That is his book. That book is his. Okay. So now I have here already the enclitic, the plain form. And what I would like to see here is the enclitic form.
Kitabe.
The second one, khane-am, that one, this one,
Khane.
this one.
Then khane-aman.
Perfect, khane-aman, exactly. khane-aman. khane-aman بزرگ است. Our house is big. So, خودکار.
این خودکار تو است. Or خودکار تو. خودکارت.
Exactly, خودکار تو versus خودکارت. Exactly. خودکار تو versus خودکارت. And the next one is just that I came up with three new words here. One of them is dastband, which is the bracelet because it has the dast, which is hand, and band is the bond or binding something. So it's the dastband. The next one is gushi, comes from the word gush, which means ear, and gush is a portable phone, is gushi. And axe is the picture. So, okay. The pronunciation is dastband. Dastband. And this one is like in the European root, no, which means near.
So dastband aman. Or dastband
Perfect. Dast.
Noast.
Noast, exactly. Dastband. Dam. No. As or dastband aman. Dast. Band with the A, of course. Man. Dastbandam or dastbandaman. The next one is gushi.
So gushi, gushiash, or
Perfect.
gushi.
Oh, that was a little bit tricky. Gushi ash. Perfect. Or the plain form?
گوشیده‌او.
Perfect.
Maybe.
گوشی‌او. Perfect. Exactly. گوشی‌اش. گوشی‌او. And the last one is axe. Picture. In general, is a photography. The word is rather is a photography. Picture might be also a painting, but it is not meant. It means that a picture's photography is axe in Persian, because the word for picture, which is painted, is not axe. Is another was naqashi, but axe means picture, photographed picture. So
in aman or in exam asked.
perfect. In axe man or accent. Perfect. We are done with this homework. Amazing. Just save it under our group class name to make sure that the students would have access to the keys. So just right here. So let's close this one. Any question regarding this one? I think it's quite a good exercise, and it's just when we were children, and we wanted to learn this possessive pronouns in analytic form, our teacher, back to, my goodness, decades ago, she created an abbreviation from this am, at, ash, aman, etan, created just one long tail phrase, kind of giant phrase, and just wrote all those together in one word, right? Wrote am atash, aman, etan, one word. Or and that was funny because it sounded like a song, and I had it somewhere here if I find it. Exactly this one, Matash Montan Shan. Just to learn it, that it's kind of acronym to learn these possessive pronouns at once. So because it's all in one word, right? It's just only two phrases. This Matash Montan Shan. And you know that okay is am, at, ash, and aman, etan, eshan, of course, in a short form. If it helps you, I don't know. So now back to this idea of this possessive pronouns I explained before, that in fact there are synonyms, whether you would say machine man or machinam or khane-am or khane-am. They are absolute synonyms, but there is one exception here. If the subject is doing something to him or herself, for example, the subject goes to his own property, the subject it's his own food, the subject drinks its own water, or the subject is playing with himself or herself, then in this case, it is better to use the enclitic forms. For example, look at this phrase. Otaq means room, and I have the phrase man be otaqam raftam, which means I went to my room, as you see that here. In this case, it is more wise and correct to use the enclitic form. And the second optional phrase here that I just highlighted with crossing through is wrong. So you cannot say man be otaq man raftam. Reason? Because you are repeating the same subject twice. So with other words, you can even forget about that if the subject and the object are the same. Think about that. Do you repeat the same pronoun twice? And if it's the case, it is better that the second pronoun would come in enclitic form. If the subject and the objects are not the same, with other words, if the pronoun would not repeat exactly identical in the phrase, you're welcome to use the plain forms. For example, if is it not my room that I'm going to, but your room. So I can do that either way. I can say من به اتاقت رفتم or من به اتاق تو رفتم. But it does not work to say من به اتاق من رفتم. Giving you another example, imagine I have a phrase like, let's say, you have the word خوردن, and that means to eat. Just write it here. خوردن. That means to eat. And I want to say, I ate your cake. Well, in this case, it's fine. I can go ahead and say, من کیک تو را خوردم. من کیک تو را خوردم. Of course it works. I cake of your object marker را خوردم. But if I have a piece of cake and this cake does not belong to you, but it belongs to me, I cannot say this phrase. I cannot say من کیک من را خوردم. So that would be wrong. Why? Because it really means I ate the cake of mine. So, and it syntactically is wrong because I'm repeating the same pronoun twice. Once here as a subject and once here as an object. So the correct form, so it would be done wrong. The correct form would be to say من کیکم را خوردم. In this case, you see that I'm not repeating, in fact, the pronoun twice. I have it once as a subject, I, and I have it once as an object, my. So, which means I ate my cake. It is the only exception, necessarily, which is imperative not to repeat the pronoun twice. And it could be for any person. It could be first person, second person. Well, in the third person, it might be another person, right? And that in this case, there's a let's say a tolerate zone or tolerance zone. What I mean by that is, imagine if I have a phrase like, let's say, او در آپارتمان او بود. Can you translate this phrase? Apartment is apartment, right? او در آپارتمان او بود.
So he in apartment of his he went to his own apartment.
He was in his apartment. But the question is, in whose apartment?
Oh, so if it was like a friend of
That would
his,
work. Exactly. If U is Dante and the second U is Fasci, that's fine. But if the U is Dante and U is also Dante, then won't work anymore.
and
In this case, it would work. It could say U در آپارتمان او بود with the precondition that the second U is not the first U. But if it is, then you have to say او در آپارتمانش بود. Then it means he was in his own apartment. In this case, absolutely. You could say او در آپارتمانش بود. That would work. Absolutely. That's fine. Just in case that here in the U is Dante, and let's say that apartmane, this is an example, and then the second one is Fasci. That would work for the first phrase. That's fine. We could say, like getting that here to make it clear. That would work. So U در آپارتمان او بود. So in this case, could go ahead and say او در آپارتمان فرشید بود. That would work with no problem. But in this case, in fact, what are you doing here is you have two different people. So in this case, then you can say او در آپارتمان او بود. But if that's Dante who is in his own apartment, then this won't work here. It could be Dante در آپارتمان Dante بود. Here in this case, it won't work anymore. So in this case, you have to come up with an idea using the possessive pronoun, because the first U is also the second U. That doesn't work. It's the only exception where you cannot use possessive pronouns in a plain form, but you need to use the enclitic forms. Perfect. Okay, so and then something that I would like to teach you is also what happens if you are using these forms in enclitic form. And so you have an option to use the colloquial spoken vernacular Persian. For example, if you have the word ketab and you want to use that in enclitic form, say ketabam, ketabat, ketabash, ketabaman, ketabatan, ketabashan. But in spoken, what is I highlighted here as colloquial becomes ketabam, ketabet, ketabesh, means at and ash becomes et and esh. And in plural, ketabaman, ketabatan, ketabashan becomes ketabamun, ketabatun, ketabashun. That is the colloquial version of using these enclitic forms, right? Again, you could have any other word. Let's say I don't know, let's say you have the word appartement. That would be appartemanam, appartemanat, appartemanash, apparteman, appartemanatan, appartemanashan. And then in colloquial form would be appartemanam, appartemanet, appartemanesh, appartemanemun, appartemanetun, and appartemaneshun. Let me just, for sake of exercise, writing just some words here. What about the word khane? That becomes anyway khune, right? So you have khane-am, khane-at, khane-ash, khane-man, khane-tan, khane-shan. What about spoken? That's tricky a little bit. Look at the pattern here. And just go ahead and conjugate that the way you see that in the colloquial form.
Using khane instead of hane.
Spoken, yes.
So khane-am, right? Or khane-am,
Or khane-am, exactly.
khunet, khunesh,
Uh-huh.
khune-un,
Uh-huh.
khunetun, and khuneshun.
Absolutely. Or what about this word? Let's say taking this word. خودکار, which meant pen. So خودکارم, خودکارت, خودکارش, خودکارمان, خودکارتان, خودکارشان. Colloquial, how it would be.
Hodkaram, so hodkaret, hodkaresh, hodkaremun, hodkaretun, and hodkareshun.
خودکارشون, exactly. So what about the word, let's say, دوست? Go ahead.
In spoken, it would be still dustam, but dustet, dustesh, dustemun, dustetun, and dusteshun.
Perfect. What about the word Farsi? You want to say my Persian, your Persian, etc.
So would anything in that word change?
No, it doesn't become Fursi or something like that.
Okay.
No, well, because well, this changing of aleph to u happens if the word is an. So you need really to have an to become un. Otherwise, it won't work, right? It should be really like a word, like, for example, khiyaban, which means street, would be khiyabun. A word for like none becomes nun. So for changing a colloquial form, literary form, a colloquial form, you need this element of aleph and nun together. Not every aleph changes to an u, right? You need to have aleph and nun together, which is not the case in the word Farsi. Okay.
Okay, so you were saying like my Farsi, like you would still
How would you say that?
that expression. So Farsiam, Farsiet, Farsiesh, Farsimun,
Farsimun.
Farsietun, for just
you don't need the A anymore because it has already a long E. Farsimun, Farsitun.
And Farsishun.
Farsishun. That's it. Perfect. So amazing. So okay. So let me just save also this one because I want to just send it to the students, including you, of course. Would be then for our class, Natalie. No worries, that would be a private link, right? Nobody would have access to that except you, Joshua, and not Joshua, sorry. Joshua would be nice if he would be there. So no, it would be just for you and Juliana and Romina. Natalie,
Perfect.
Juliana, and Romina. Perfect. So, and then I would come to this one. So, well, so we could possessive pronouns, and well, this is from a Persian book for distinct as for teaching Persian to non-native speakers, and it's exactly the same concept that I taught you before. So man, ketabam man, ma ketabam ma, to ketabam to, shoma ketabam shoma, or u ketabam u, anha ketabam anha. And then it shows you that these joint forms are ketabam, ketabat, ketabash, and you see that here in a let me just open the comment, and you see that here in these forms that you have in fact this these endings. Ketabam, ketabat, ketabash, ketabaman, ketabatan, and ketabasham. And you have it nicely here in a transcribed form. So, and the exercise here is asking for creating the enclitic, or well, the writer here calls them joint forms or joint pronouns, which is actually two designations for the same phenomenon. So, شهر-من, how would it be?
شهرم. شهرم.
Yes, perfect. شهرم. You know what it means?
I don't believe so.
شهر means city.
Okay.
شهرم. Next one is جواب تو.
جوابت.
جوابت. Perfect. جوابت. Perfect. جوابت. جوابت. Perfect. شهرم جوابت. So, let's go to the next one. ساعت او. ساعت is the watch. It could be a wristwatch that I have, or it could be a hanging clock. That's also ساعت in Persian.
ساعتش.
ساعت. ساعتش. Perfect. So شهرم جوابت ساعتش. Next one. خواب means dream or sleep, both. خواب. And the verb here is silent. In Middle Persian, it was خواب. It means you had the khe and v as a double consonant at the beginning, but it has been then facilitated to the خواب, and the verb is silent. I mean, you don't hear it anymore. خواب.
خوابمان.
Perfect. خوابمان. خوابمان. Perfect. Next one is the word کشور. That means country or state.
کشورتان.
Perfect. کشورتان. کشورتان. No. شهرم جوابت ساعتش خوابمان کشورتان. My city, your answer or your response, his watch or his clock, our dream, your country. What about if you want to change them morphologically to colloquial spoken Persian? شهرم doesn't change, but جوابت changes.
So it would be جوابت.
Perfect. So attach change as well.
Oh yes. What did
Well, I mean colloquial. So attach. So if جوابت becomes جوابت, what happens to so attach?
Oh, ساعتش.
ساعتش. What about خوابمان?
Does
The on change to un.
yes, have a moon.
خوابمان. کشورتان.
کشورتون.
Perfect. Let's go to the second row. Amazing. Okay. So نان آنها, their bread.
نانشون.
نانشان. Perfect. And spoken would be?
نانشون.
Exactly. نون. Actually, in fact,
Oh yes, نونشون.
Noonishun, right? Sounds a little bit funny, but it's really like that because nun becomes noon, shan becomes shun, so noonishun. Shir shoma. Shir has two meanings in Persian. That means milk and lion. Well, they're homophonia because the other one was share, but this weird has been dropped in Persian. We don't have this difference anymore. So this homophonic word, it means milk and lion. But here, I mean, it means your lion or your milk, doesn't matter. So, shire shoma.
Shiretan.
Shiretan.
Or spoken shiretun.
Shiretun, perfect. The next one is panir. You know what is panir?
I feel like I've heard it before, but
Well,
I
if
don't.
you have ever been to Indian shops over Washington and around, you have this very delicious mozzarella-like cheese called panir. That is cheese. It's a Persian cheese, panir. If you go to the Indian shops or you have ever Indian dish, you have always these small cubes of the cheese inside, like mozzarella, like a feta cheese. This is panir. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So panir aman, our cheese. So
Paneer aman or spoken paneer aman.
Panir aman, perfect. So the next one is zamayr-e. Zaban is the language, but at the same time is tongue. Well, obviously because in lots of languages in the world, except English, because in English means also you could understand zaban also as tongue and as a language. So zaban is the one and only word that has this binary meaning, language and tongue. Zamayr-e would be
Zabanash.
Zabanash. What about the spoken version?
Zabonish, or does the word change?
That changes. Zabunish.
Zabunish.
Because you have this criteria of Aleph and Nun, right? That's the point. You need Aleph and Nun to change it to Un. And this have it. This form does have on and non. Right? So haleto means your condition, your mood. So
halat, right?
Halat.
And halet would be, or
yes, that's it. Halat.
yes.
Perfect. So now, because well, the two other students are missing, I don't want to introduce a new topic, but it would be amazing if you would go over Unit 8, which I'm sending you, and well, the good thing about that is that you, in fact, can read the entire chapter, which is about 7 pages, just in transcription. So ketabam, ketabet, ketabish, and that is just concentrating on colloquial Persian, not on written Persian. See that? Sandaliyam, sandaliyat, and you have it explain you what izafe is. It explains you. It gives you some vocabulary that you have to learn, and then you have a small dialogue. You have a translation of the dialogue. You have a repetition of a drill, and then you have a substitution drill, what you could do if you don't want to do another one. And then you have a substitution drill 2. You can also think about that, how you would say those phrases in Persian, in colloquial form. That's it, in fact, and I think for today's session, you're good. Do you have any question?
No, I don't think so.
So the vocabulary that I'm introducing in this Unit 8 is not mandatory. It's just for the students to look at that, just making a little bit more themselves a little more familiar with the way you would say a word in a colloquial form. And that's why I avoided using any written form in Arabic alphabets, because it sounds weird if you write the Arabic alphabet and Persian in the spoken form in a written form. So that and it would not justify all the sounds. So the Latin alphabet can reproduce this colloquial sound much more better. Go ahead, your question.
This is so very helpful. So thank you so much. I don't
Absolutely.
think I have any questions, but I will respond to your email with you were saying the preferred start date.
Absolutely, right? And then let's see what other two students say. I'm fine with that, making that even later. Let's see what other students say. Thank you. Have a great time. See you then next week.
You too, for